Story 1. In the city once, I heard two guys get into a fight about something trivial. One guy screamed, "Your mother is a terrible person," and the other shouted back, "Your mother is an excellent cook." The first guy paused, and that was that. Story 2. It was not an insult, but I told an elderly man that his zipper was down, and he replied, "If it cannot get up, it cannot get out." Story 3. My friend from high school had vitiligo all over his entire body. Anyway, we were playing basketball when someone on the other team called him a Dalmatian. Chachi said, "Don't be mad. I was with your mom many times." It was very funny. Story 4. The best one I heard was out on the town in Dublin, Ireland years ago. Some man yelled, "You're a whore," at a girl. Cut right through the music. She clapped back super fast with, "And I still wouldn't sleep with you." It has been a go-to response for me ever since. Story 5. Babe, if you keep lifting weights, you are going to look like a man. It has not worked for you. Story 6. Customer at a bar to bartender. If you lost 20 pounds, I would ask you on a date. Bartender to customer. If I gained 20 pounds, would you never talk to me again? Story 7. After reading these, I am anxious to get into a verbal altercation, so I can be insulted and awkwardly forget what I was supposed to say, ultimately embarrassing the offending party. Story 8. Absolutely silly schoolyard behavior from elementary school. A child was making fun of me for wearing glasses, so I took them off and said, "At least I can take them off, but you are always ugly." Story 9. My best friend. After an argument with a kid from our school in a shop, we began walking away down the street. Kid, "Where are you going?" Friend, "Your mom's house." Kid, "My mom lives the other way, idiot." Friend, "No, I meant your real mom." Story 10. Once I heard someone respond to an insult with, "I could agree with you, but then we would both be wrong." It was so quick and clever, it left the room stunned. Story 11. I was pregnant and went out to swim in a bathing suit. My husband's friend said, "Wow, you look like you've eaten a lot of pasta." I replied, "I'm 6 months pregnant. What's your excuse?" They are no longer friends. Story 12. A workmate playfully asked our manager if he bought his pink tie at a gay bar gift shop. The manager retorted, "Yes, and I told them I knew you, and they gave me a discount." That was great because this particular workmate is usually the quickest wit. The manager shut him down instantly. Story 13. It's got to be the aliens locker room scene for me. Hudson. "Hey Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man?" Vasquez. "No, have you?" Story 14. Someone was insulting someone else's clothing choices, possibly a hat or a shirt, and they responded, "It gives me magical powers to mind my own business." I saw this phrase somewhere on the internet, probably Reddit, and have used it in real life. Story 15. I was playing Call of Duty, and someone was talking about how all the girls and female teachers at his school wanted to be with him. Someone else on voice chat said, "So, what's it like being homeschooled?" Story 16. So there were two girls fighting, and one of them looked at my sister, who was minding her own business, and said, "You go to hell too." My sister asked, "Do you want me to say anything to your mom?" Story 17. Your face looks like it was set on fire and someone put it out with a wet brick. Story 18. You are a clever man, but you are not half as clever as you think you are. Story 19. A guy on our bus in high school was a complete jerk. He was always saying degrading things to the girls and being rude to everyone. One day he said to me, "Jerk me off." I responded with, "I don't have a microscope and a pair of tweezers." Story 20. I told my teenage sister-in-law something and she responded with, her. "Oh my God, when?" Me, huh. Her. "When did I ask?" I was speechless. All I could do was silently walk away. Story 21. On an Indian roast show, there were two bald twin brothers, and the roaster told them, "You two confuse me on a biological level. You look like testicles, but you are both jerks." I am still waiting for an opportunity to use that. Story 22. My mother worked in a dialysis clinic when I was little, and she often brought me to work. One day, when I was about 4, my mother brought me onto the floor to introduce me to her patients. It was the first time the floor was full. There was a man in his 90s who shook my hand. He looked up at my mother and said, "She's beautiful." My mother was flattered and said, "Thank you." Then he looked at me, looked back at my mother, and asked, "Is she adopted?" Story 23. If you want my comeback, you will have to scrape it off your mother's teeth. Jimmy Carr. Story 24. During class in high school, the guy who liked to bully me kept calling me gay. This had been going on for weeks when I finally snapped and said, "You must be gay also, and I'm assuming you keep hitting on me. It's the only reason why I think you won't leave me alone." He kept stammering something while his friends were laughing. I then ended with, "I'm not gay, but if I was, sorry you're not my type." That was the last time he bullied me. Story 25. Back in 2020, I was walking along the waterfront with a friend. We were wearing masks for COVID-19 when an unmasked man approached me and said, "Hey, are you a doctor? Because I have a strange-looking fungus on my penis that I want you to look at." Without missing a beat, I replied, "Yes, actually, I am an amputation specialist. Let me go get my surgical scissors and take care of that for you." I have never seen such a quick disappearance of a smug grin. Story 26. I was on a bus with rowdy Marines when a thoughtless frat brother was complaining about the girls he could not get and said, "I do not associate with overweight girls." I did not intend to, but I just blurted out, "Overweight girls do not associate with you." The uproar of loud, testosterone-fueled Marines echoed off the van walls. I have felt that excitement ever since. It is not very clever or original, but Marines have low standards. Story 27. I have a flat chest, and a group of boys made fun of my looks to be funny. Apparently, they did not plan to be hateful. Their humor is just to bring others down. They joked about my necklace, which was hanging in my cleavage area. I tried to hide the area with my jacket because it made me uncomfortable. A big guy who was overweight said that there was no use hiding something because there were no breasts to hide. I replied that he was jealous because he has bigger breasts than me. I know it's petty, but at that point I was close to crying, and he was stunned. Story 28. I was being sarcastic and told one of my coworkers, "If I wanted any lip from you, I would unzip my pants." It got a pretty good laugh, but when he immediately responded, "I do not eat baby food," everyone laughed very hard. Story 29. I was friends with a couple of guys who were cousins. One day they got into an argument. I can't remember the exact insult, but the reply was, "The best thing your daddy could have done was roll over and shoot you on the wall." Story 30. Dude bragging, "I got a big landmark." Friend, what happened? Did someone surprise you? Story 31. Bully, your wiener's the size of a Tic Tac. Kid, that's why your mom's breath smells so good. Story 32. I was at a mixed table at my brother's wedding. His wife's grandmother and grandfather were at the same table. Her grandmother was fussing over everyone who sat down, making sure we all got enough food. Grandmother, did everyone get gravy? Peter, do you have enough carrots? You, son, do you want another roll? Grandfather, long time since I've heard that. Story 33. Once, a man told me, "If you were a man, I would kick your ass." I replied, "If you were a man, I would be worried." Story 34. The story about Kamala this week is entertaining. In the first meeting of the Senate Intelligence Committee in 2017, then Chairman Richard Burr, a Republican from North Carolina, was introducing new members when he reached Harris. Burr struggled to pronounce her first name, according to people familiar with the meeting. "I know you told me how to pronounce it," he apologized. "Oh well, I'll just call you Senator Harris." Harris, who had been a senator for only a few days at that point, responded, "No problem. I'll just call you Dick." Story 35. Go to hell. Response. I have been there and I do not like the way you run it. Story 36. I live in New Orleans and we're big on costuming events, even outside Mardi Gras or things outsiders might traditionally associate with costuming. I was going to an Easter-themed pub crawl, but first met a friend at a very high-end restaurant for some champagne. I was dressed for my pub crawl, wearing an outfit with ears. Pretty sexy, but nothing out of the ordinary for New Orleans. As I was walking in the French Quarter to meet my friend for champagne, there was a group of what I would term frat boys across the street. Obviously tourists holding hand grenades, wearing beads, looked like college students and probably just 21. One of them yelled out at me, "Hey, are you a hooker?" "I'm a biostatistician, but I don't think it's my numbers he wanted crunched." Without breaking stride, I gave a big thumbs up. He followed up with, "How much?" To which I yelled, "If you have to ask, you can't afford it." The howling that came from his friends as I heard him attempt to respond warms me at night. Story 37. Since I saw someone else comment with a movie quote, my favorite is this one from Rent, in response to a character being transphobic. "I am more of a woman than you will ever have, and more of a man than you will ever be." Story 38. My girlfriend and I were jokingly arguing over whether a shirt looked good. Me: "I'm sorry, I think we have to agree that I have much better taste than you do." Her: "You're right. After all, you're dating me, and I'm dating you." Story 39. My go-to response in online gaming when someone says, "You suck," is, "Not as much as your husband." The possibilities. 1. The insulter is male, uncomfortable with their sexuality, and homophobic. They become upset by the suggestion that they are married to a man and hopefully learn not to insult people on the internet. 2. The insulter is male, not homophobic, and comfortable with their sexuality. They likely embrace the insult, and we end up just being silly guys online, diffusing the tension. 3. The insulter is male and homosexual, in which case I have complimented their husband, and the tension is diffused. 4. The insulter is female, insecure, and heterosexual. I suggest their husband actually likes men, which may upset them and hopefully teaches them not to insult people on the internet. 5. The insulter is female and non-heteronormative. The absurdity of the response leads to interesting conversation, diffusing the tension. There's always a win. Story 40. Family dinner one weekend. Dad has been his usual unpleasant self all day. Grandma makes a cake for everyone. She has a bite during dessert and it goes down wrong. She starts coughing. Dad says, "Cake a little dry, is it?" Grandma ignores it. Later, Dad is ranting about the neighborhood garage sale going on. Dad: "Cars parked everywhere. People wandering onto lawns. Absolute brain-dead morons throwing their money away on things people should just throw away. It's a supermarket for the stupid." Grandma: "So what did you end up buying?" Dead silence, then laughter. Dad got up and left the table. Still miss you to this day, you legend of a grandmother. Story 41. Oh no. No. I'm going to be with your dad and have a child so I can give him someone he truly loves. Story 42. When Roseanne Barr said that Tom Arnold had a small penis, he replied, "Even a Boeing 747 looks small when it lands in the Grand Canyon." Story 43. Backstory. I dated a guy casually for a few months. I found out he had a long-term girlfriend when I ran into them both at a train station. Long story short, the girl dislikes me, and they are still together. I left and blocked him as soon as possible. We run into each other often. D and his girlfriend always make snarky comments. I usually tell them to go away, but recently I ran into them on a train. They noticed me sitting while they got off and made a comment. I replied to both, "Sorry, I don't have any change. I live in a big city, and people ask for change daily." Her jaw dropped, and she just started walking away. I haven't seen them since. Story 44. My friend and I were at the beach. My friend has a chubby physique, and he owns it. We were walking past 3 teenage girls who shouted, "Ew, he is so fat." My friend made a big, loud, never-ending fart. The girls looked confused and shocked, and they all fell silent. I still laugh about this today. Story 45. I'm sorry. I did not realize you were an expert in my life choices. Story 46. Menswear guy on Twitter has had some excellent comebacks, but this one is his best in my opinion. Reply Dude said that is just a complete lack of understanding of human nature. Women instinctively present themselves. Men instinctively demonstrate themselves. Both are done to attract mates. Menswear Guy said your biography says you are an aquatic plant scientist. Did you choose this profession because you thought women wanted to have sex with an aquatic plant scientist? Story 47. Go ahead and call me a major nerd, but this one is from Downton Abbey. One character tells one of the Crawley sisters that she will never see him again, and without missing a beat, Maggie Smith's character says, "Do you promise?" Story 48. Not an insult, but I have always prided myself on this comeback. I was talking to my husband's college roommate. I was ranting about a girl who was being unpleasant. Me. She was such a jerk. Roommate. Really, just meerkats? Can a woman be a jerk? Me. Men can be cowards, can't they? It shocked him into silence, which was really hard to do. He was very witty, and I was never quick enough to respond to his remarks. Story 49. I was working in a building next to Planned Parenthood, so our team was constantly going to the truck and back to the worksite. There was one particularly aggressive and uneducated woman who would yell at us every time we crossed their blockade. Finally, this woman yelled in my face, "How old do you think babies should be before we prevent their murder?" I am not a particularly humorous person, but somehow I was inspired that day and asked, "I don't know. How old are you?" Silence with mouth agape was her response. Story 50. The best one I have ever come up with in the moment. The woman who slept with my husband had also slept with his brother. She and I were yelling at each other after I found out, and she told me to forget you. I replied, "You have been with enough members of this family, don't you think?" I am still proud of that years later. Story 51. I quit a job without notice, and as I was walking out, my unpleasant boss said, "You will have to follow the no rehire policy." I turned and said, "Well, Christmas came early." I was in a stairwell and it echoed. Someone a few floors down said, "Dame, you go boy." I never felt better knowing I said the right thing at the right time. It has never happened again. Story 52. I was a man in my 20s walking down the sidewalk. A man with his friends from across the street yelled, "That shirt looks like my mother's." Ha ha ha. I yelled back, "Looks like." Story 53. One time I got into a verbal altercation with someone who called my gay friend a homophobic slur. He said, "Why don't you meet me in the parking lot?" I responded flirtatiously, "What do you want to do in the parking lot?" He turned beet red and walked away. Story 54. A local radio personality, who thought he was impressive, was harassing an attractive young lady. It culminated with him saying he would like to get in her pants. Quick as a flash, she replied, "No thanks. One is enough." Story 55. Billy Clanton. Why, it's the drunk piano player. You're so drunk you can't hit anything. In fact, you're probably seeing double. Doc. I have 2 guns, one for each of you. Story 56. I like a good highbrow retort. Nothing too complicated or crude. Delivered in a forum where you normally have to be gracious and diplomatic, it can be absolutely brutal. My favorite is probably an old one from my world leader and another. When Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau learned that Richard Nixon had insulted him, he responded, "I have been called worse things by better people." Story 57. From the TV series Archer, where Archer was criticizing Cyril for calling Lana's baby shower a bastard shower. Archer. Cyril, shut your pout hole. Accept the fact that Lana was so far out of your league that impregnating her would have basically been interspecies breeding. Now get on with your life. It's been years, but I still chuckle whenever I remember. Story 58. Early Steve Martin. Long ago on one of his albums, a man in the audience heckled him. His comeback was, "Yes, I remember when I had my first beer." Story 59. There was one time in high school when one of the kids in my class was talking about how he was going to run away to be in the rodeo that was coming up. I quietly said to myself, "What? A rodeo clown?" I was sitting right by the teacher's desk, and the teacher heard me and laughed. I don't know if anyone else did, but I was still proud of it and kind of wish I had said it louder so the kid could hear me because his face would have been priceless. Story 60. I once had a male coworker tell me that I looked better without glasses. I replied, "You look better without my glasses, too." Story 61. Did you know it was called a trampoline until your mom jumped on one? Story 62. Years ago, my wife and I bought our first house, a small house, and we had an elderly woman living next door. She was miserable and had issues with everything we did. After a few years, with more money saved, we decided to move to a bigger house in a neighboring town. About 6 months after we moved, I was shopping, and there was the woman. As I walked past her, she said, "I still have to see your face." I stopped, smiled, and said, "You're not gone yet," and kept walking. Story 63. This girl thought I was coming on to her boyfriend. I was not. I said to her, "I have problems of my own. I do not need yours too." Story 64. Police officer. Where are you coming from? Friend, your mother's house. Police officer. That's quite a drive from here. Friend, I know. Totally worth it. The police officer walks away and calls for backup. Story 65. Sometimes people in my neighborhood try selling bikes they steal from other neighborhoods. One day, I was going into a store and a man asked me if I wanted to buy his bike. Man, "Hey, do you want a bike? $20. Me loudly, "No, I don't want a stolen bike." Man, "Yeah, well, me neither." I gave him a stern look and walked away thinking to myself, "Gore. Well played, bike thief. Well played." Story 66. My friend, who plays video games, said there is something wrong with my controller. I said yes, it is the person holding it. Story 67. My older brother talking to my little brother after he missed a shot in mini golf. Older brother. "You suck." Little brother. "Yeah, well, you swallow." The family behind us burst out laughing too. Story 68. Whenever someone hits me with a "your mother" joke of any kind, I always respond with, "I don't have a mother. My father and I share yours." Weird, I guess, but it shuts things down immediately. Story 69. Accidental insult in my chat. We were talking about our fathers and sharing stories when one person said, "I don't know how my father is doing. He recently went to Spain on vacation and posted a photo in knight's armor." I had the audacity to write, "He put on protection too late." I was embarrassed by that comment, but we had a good laugh. Story 70. I've always wanted to use that line from Firefly. I see you haven't been burdened with an overabundance of schooling. Story 71. I was in a truck with the crew. The guys up front were chatting. One guy was complaining that his girlfriend was pregnant, and with all the other children he had with other women, he was nearly broke. He told us he was getting a vasectomy. I immediately asked from the back, "Court ordered." Story 72. One day at football practice, a senior was having an issue with me, a freshman. He got right in my face, asking, "Do you have a problem?" Without thinking, I answered, "At home, in the freezer." That answer caught him off guard, and he just started laughing. We were cool after that. Story 73. My daughter's summer camp on pool day. Terrible child, you're too fat to wear a bikini. Daughter. I might not be skinny, but I can kick your ass anytime I want. They were both 7 years old. I have never been more proud. Story 74. In the southern Amazon basin, there is a form of body lice nearing extinction due to the excessive use of garden pesticides. That, my friend, means more to me than your opinion. Story 75. A woman was harassing another woman because she had the audacity to park her car in her own driveway, which the harasser claimed should belong to her. After months of constant abuse, vandalism to the car, and stress, the woman had had enough. In response to the threat of being arrested, the woman screamed, "Go ahead and call the police. I will call my lawyer, and he will be so far up your ass you'll be able to taste him." Story 76. My mom dealt with a really rude postal office employee once. The employee yelled at her for parking just over the line. My mom told her she would move the car, and as she started to head for her car, the postal employee began lecturing her, yelling and following her. My mom was simply trying to correct the mistake. It turned out the postal employee followed her out, And as my mom got in her car, the employee made an offensive gesture. Without missing a beat, my mom said, "Oh, yeah, I thought you looked like a bad person." The postal employee's reaction was priceless. The only thing better was how I dealt with the same employee the next time I went to that post office. Story 77. In high school many years ago, this girl was yelling in my face, causing a scene with a bunch of people gathering around us. She was right in my face, but all I could focus on was her terrible breath. Needless to say, I ignored everything she said and just responded with, "I can't even focus on what you're saying. I'm too distracted by how bad your breath smells." Seemed like a fatal blow because everyone laughed, and she ran off. The fight was about a mutual friend of ours, my then childhood best friend, getting involved with drugs, which I blamed on her at the time. In hindsight, my anger was misplaced, but hindsight is always clear. Story 78. Two kids at a baseball game. Your penis is so small it looks like a tic-tac. That's why your mom's breath is always fresh. Story 79. In high school, there was a girl we will call Rushneck. She was very annoying and somewhat basic and dumb. I had gone to school with her since grade school. I remember one time in middle school when we were partnered on a project, and I started crying because she was so annoying that I had no choice but to cry or hit her. The teacher came over and asked me why I was crying, and I just pointed and said, "She is so stupid." Flash forward to high school. I was hanging out with my friends during break, and she was with hers nearby. I was drinking one of those classic, unpleasant orange juice boxes that were in every American school cafeteria about 20 years ago. It was sour as usual, and I did not finish it. I threw it into the trash can, and regrettably, all of the remaining orange juice shot out of the opening and spilled all over my friend Trenton's crotch. As I was apologizing profusely and Trenton was telling me not to worry about it, Rushnack said, "Ha ha ha. The bathroom is that way, Trenton." Without missing a beat, as if he had planned it and was waiting, he spun around, pointed, and yelled, "The zoo is that way, Rushnack." Everyone laughed loudly. Even Rushnack's friends were laughing at her. The bell rang and we moved on with our lives. Story 80. From basketball. I slept with your sister. My sister is deceased. That explains why she wasn't moving around much. Story 81. I was an angsty teenager. I wore edgy t-shirts, JNCO jeans, and wallet chains. After high school, I decided to join the United States Army. The Army did nothing to ease my angst. It was just weaponized. After basic training and then a longer than average advanced individual training, I came home for 30 days of hometown recruiting. While home, the September 11th attacks happened. A few days later, I was fueling up my vehicle. Still home, but already in contact with my unit in anticipation that my hometown recruiting would be cut short. I was wearing my angsty teenager attire. The shirt didn't say anything, but my giant 32-inch JNCO jeans had a huge fuck war patch. As I was walking in to pay, an older man stopped me. He said, "Hey, bud, what's with those pants? Don't you think that's kind of inappropriate?" I said, "What? They say fuck war. It's pretty clear. What's the problem?" I wish there was video or a witness to support this part because it is up there with. And then everyone clapped. The man said, "I think it's messed up that our country is under attack and young punks like you have the nerve to say things like that. Go say that to a soldier. I bet you'd never do it." Then, with all the self-righteous, smug energy I could muster, I said, "Actually, sir, I'm just home doing hometown recruiting after finishing training. My unit is scheduled to leave in the coming weeks. I could die defending your right to lecture me right now." He didn't want to believe me, but I think he started to put a few things together. The boot haircut, the restraint. He kind of half walked away and stuttered, "Yeah, well, you suck. This actually happened to me. I'll swear on a stack of whatever is necessary. I know exactly how it sounds." This story and flicking a cigarette only to have it land on the filter standing up are the two I don't even bother telling. Story 82. A few classmates and I were joking about that old Tootsie Pop commercial with the owl. One guy asked, "How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?" I said, "The world will never know." Story 83. If you are going to be two-faced, you better make sure one of them is attractive. Made her cry. Story 84. I am a teacher, and a student was making fun of my drawing. I said, "Hey, I get paid whether you like my drawing or not." The students loved it. Another time, we were reading about class pets, and one student would not stop talking. I told him we were going to make him the class pet if he did not be quiet. The students enjoyed that too. I am usually very nice, so when I joke like this, students enjoy it even more because of the surprise factor. Story 85. Silly mom joke routine. When my kids say something to spite me or are just plain rude, I come back at them with a yo mom joke. I am the mother. It goes like this. You have a big bottom. Hey, your mom has a big bottom. My 13-year-old will cringe, roll her eyes, clear her throat, and walk away, and the 5-year-old pauses and then says, "But that's you." Sorry. It cracks me up every time and diffuses the confrontation they sometimes try to start. Story 86. Those of us who came to school by train were all waiting on the platform for the train home. A boy in my year group insulted me. I looked down and told him that his fly was open because it was open. The look on his face suggested he suspected that part of my comeback was that I, perhaps an hour before, had somehow caused him to fail to zip up his fly. There was a moment of terror. The strangest part is that I had not noticed before that moment, nor had anyone else, because we would have told him. Story 87. Two kids were fighting over something silly at the lunch table. One said, "You are an idiot." The second one replied, "Don't be mad at me because you were a mistake your mom was supposed to accept." Story 88. From a video I saw, wisdom chases you, but you are faster. Story 89. It is a song lyric, but I have always loved it. If you put your brain on a razor blade, it would look like a BB rolling down a 4-lane highway. Singer. Story 90. I once asked my mother-in-law if she needed help climbing down from her cross or if she could do it on her own. Thank goodness she has a good sense of humor and was drinking at the time. Story 91. After an argument with my ex, her new boyfriend started to bombard me with texts that were full of misspellings and poor grammar. Instead of arguing with him, I sent him a link to Hooked on Phonics and told him to go ask mommy to help you subscribe before having a big boy conversation. I never heard back. Part of me hopes he got that subscription, and I inspired that man to learn to read and write. Story 92. We have a coworker who is noticeably balding. One day he comes in and drops his lunch on the shop table. He then walks over to our other chubby coworker and says, "Hey, fatty." In response, the other coworker says, "How is it possible that you're standing here, but your hairline is still at the door?" We all died laughing. Story 93. I once heard a couple fighting, and the woman yelled, "Well, you don't wash your hands after you pee." So loud that everyone turned around in shock. It was so unexpected and wild. I will never forget it, and I am sure the other people who heard her did not either. She got the last word because the man turned around and walked off in shame as if it were completely true. Story 94. Once in a World of Warcraft battleground, two guys were fighting each other. Player 1. You suck. I insulted your mom. Player 2. My mom is a jar of ashes. Player 1. Sorry man, I didn't know. Player 2. And still the wettest you'll ever get. Story 95. Another one from Acorn Television's Doc Martin. Nosy busybody. I would not park like that if I were you, love. Reply. If I were you, I would not go out in daylight, love. Story 96. Some people say I am cowardly. I say you are what you eat. Peter Steele of Type O Negative. Story 97. I was going to dress as you for Halloween, but I could not fit 5 cocks in my mouth. Story 98. One of my best comebacks was to my mother's uncle. He hates the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. He would go on a rant for hours about how he thinks gay people are unnatural and should not be allowed to get married or raise children. The thing is, my mother is a lesbian. He does not know, as far as I know. She married my toxic father because she got pregnant, and my grandmother did not want illegitimate grandchildren. She tried to hide the fact that she was gay for a long time. She does not really hide it now, but she is also not vocal about it. Since she divorced my father, she has not really gotten into relationships. My great uncle was ranting about how gay people should not be allowed to raise children, which annoyed me. I asked, "Why not?" He said, "Because they will make the kids gay." I replied, "Oh, of course, because straight people only raise straight kids, right?" His son spat out half his drink, laughing so hard. Story 99. When my older brother was doing his usual, "You're younger, so you're a baby" shtick, we were both in our 20s and he said, "I'm off now, wave bye-bye." I replied, "How many fingers?" It's probably not much to most people, but he took an unbelievable amount of psychic damage with his quick reply. Story 100. Personally, I love the sleepaway camp exchange during a baseball scene. "Hey, eat dirt and go away. Eat dirt and live, Bill." Laugh out loud every time. Story 101. I am appearing for a competitive examination next year. Some of my relatives, especially nosy uncles, had the habit of asking random math or general knowledge questions and then laughing at me if I could not answer them. This made me feel insulted. One day, an uncle started asking me questions again, but I remained calm and politely made a deal with him. For every question he asked, I would also get a chance to ask him a question. He agreed. I answered all his questions because I was prepared. Then it was my turn. I asked him about the law of equimarginal utility and the Heckscher-Lean theory from economics. He could not answer, and everyone around started laughing. Since that day, neither he nor any other relative has tried to insult me in any way. Story 102. Some man thought I was staring at him and said, "What are you looking at?" I replied, "I'm not sure, but if that's what I saw in the mirror, I would kill myself." He responded without thinking, "I'm sure you would." As soon as the words left his mouth, he realized what he had said. That ended it very quickly. Story 103. This was in the mid-1970s. For some reason, a woman started ranting at me. She finally said, "I wouldn't sleep with you if you were the last man on earth." Out of nowhere, I said, "If I was the last man on earth, I bet I could find a better woman than you." In the silence that followed, I escaped before her friends could join in. I still have no idea where it came from, but I wish it happened more often. Story 104. During high school, I was in decent shape but pretty pale, and this girl thought I was not attractive. She would say "ew" to me because I was dating her friend, and she wanted to let me know how she felt. She was a mean person. One day, I was playing basketball shirtless at a park, finished and walked to my car. She was sitting nearby with a girlfriend and a couple of guys, one of whom she had liked for years. She yelled at me, "Put on a shirt," and I turned around and yelled, "Put on a mask." All the guys burst out laughing and started to roast her. One guy rejected her a little while later too. Felt good. Story 105. Maybe not the best, but recency bias. Sucks to be bad. I guess you would know. Story 106. There was a junior high bully whose father was a huge police officer, about 6 feet 7 inches tall. I was the youngest and smallest in class, and the bully was about 8 inches taller than me, so I had no chance of defending myself. I was lying on my back, getting my face bashed in, and managed to gasp, "Does it make you feel like a big man to beat up the smallest kid in school?" I thought that was a good comeback, but he didn't and kept going. So I said, "You feel big beating the small kid, like how your dad beats you at home." He became enraged, started screaming, and gave me the strongest beat down he ever had. He never touched me again after that day. Turned out I had guessed right. Story 107. I was riding in a crowded bus in London. I was standing as there were no empty seats. On the other side of the bus, I heard a woman with an irritated voice say to, I assume, a man sitting next to her, "Why don't you get up and let a woman sit down?" He snapped back, "Better yet, why don't you get up and let 2 women sit down?" I am a native New Yorker, and I assumed the guy would have told her to just leave him alone, so I was impressed. Story 108. I remember in middle school I wore a hot pink jacket and was already a little self-conscious about it being a guy. We were in an assembly in the gym, sitting in the bleachers, and this girl behind me grabbed the hood of my jacket and put it over my hair. I was really uptight about my hair and always made sure it was hairspray perfect. Her drawing more attention to my pink jacket and messing up my hair upset me, so I called her a mean name. She called me a derogatory name in return. After that, I always wondered if my nose stood out in a way that would make somebody call me that name. So to answer your question, the comeback is, forget you, Dick Nose. So awesome. Story 109. I looked in my backyard and saw my father talking to himself. I asked him, "Why are you talking to yourself?" He said, "It beats talking to you. Not much you can say after that." Story 110. I was 13 at the mall with a friend, as we often spent hours there on a Saturday in the 1980s. We got on the elevator and I said, "Stop being a pain in the ass," to my friend. She looked at the woman next to her and asked, "Do you think I'm a pain in the ass?" The woman instantly and flatly responded, "I don't know. I've never had hemorrhoids. I will never forget it." Story 111. I was at a Christmas dinner, and my brother-in-law had invited a smarmy, gross little troll of a man. When I was leaving with my same-sex partner and a mutual gay friend of ours who was also invited, my sister asked if we could share our cab with this friend. We said sure because he was on the way, and it was Christmas night. Taxis in Toronto on a busy evening like that would have been few and far between. When the cab arrived, we started to put on our winter gear, as there was heavy snow that Christmas. We began to exit, saying our goodnights, and my brother-in-law made a flippant joke about how his buddy should be careful because he was getting into a cab with all gay men. It was a harmless joke, and he and I would joke about stuff like this all the time, so it didn't bother me. In fact, I remember chuckling. The man got wide-eyed and said, "They better not try anything with me." I looked him right in the eye and replied, "There's no problem there. Our standards couldn't possibly sink that low," and proceeded to leave him on the doorstep, telling him to get his own cab. I still remember that feeling of disrespect. Story 112. I used to have plugs in my ears. I was at a house party where a guy tried to insult me by saying, "At least I don't have holes in my ear." I responded, "At least I don't have holes in my other ear." Everyone in the room was impressed. It was my proud moment of shutting down an insult without provoking a fight. Story 113. My ex was a very unhappy and unpleasant person, but one day he got into an argument with someone and said, "At least I don't engage in demeaning work for small amounts of money," and I have used that phrase ever since. Story 114. My mother told me once, "I tell you what to do. You will always be my child even when you are 60. Because I was not meeting her standards, and I was already an adult. My grandmother simply said to my mother, "Yes, my child." My mother was about to explode, and my sibling and I knew it was best to stay as far away as possible from that fallout. Story 115. I argued with my cousin once and told him that he should have been swallowed. Story 116. You are not half as clever as you think you are. That still makes me twice as clever as you. Story 117. An acquaintance of my daughter firmly declared that being gay is a lifestyle choice. She asked him when he decided to try out the heterosexual lifestyle. Story 118. Got to say, our 18-year-old daughter is wickedly witty and has a dark sense of humor. My husband came home from the gym wearing shorts and a t-shirt and was teasing her. She quickly snapped back, "I'm not taking this from a man who looks like Adam Sandler with a wasting disease." Story 119. That is not the insult you think it is. When someone tried to insult me for having routine vaccinations. Story 120. I wear eyeglasses and took them off to clean them. A girl at work said, "Oh my God. I can't believe how small your eyes are without your glasses." She is half my age and twice my size. I replied, "I can't believe how fat your ass looks with my glasses on." Story 121. I once heard, "Your forehead looks big enough to smoke a cigarette in the rain." I haven't had the chance to use it yet. Story 122. My older brother was leaving the house to hang out with friends. He said, "See you in a month of Sundays." I replied, "Make it the 12th of never and you've got a deal." Story 123. I wish I could remember even 20% of the replies to these. Story 124. In response to someone saying, "Forget you" to my father, he said, I wouldn't forget you with somebody else's. Story 125. I do not mess with foolish people. They will bring you down to their level and defeat you with experience. Story 126. I heard someone tell a group of loud basketball fans in a library, "Hey, can you keep it down? We are not in a movie theater." Story 127. I've always liked the insult. Wisdom has been chasing you, but you have always been faster. Story 128. In grade school, a boy said I was flat. I told him, "I don't see any bulge in your pants," looking at his face. Story 129. Someone yelled, "You're a colostomy bag." The other person replied, "Yeah, and you're the contents." Story 130. Tic-tac winner. Story 131. My friend once told those douchebags, we were about 12, to stop bothering us and go watch AstroTurf grow. I had no idea what AstroTurf was, and once I found out, it was so funny. Story 132. Teacher here. I once said, "I'm like Nanny McPhee. When you need me but do not want me, then I must stay. But when you want me but no longer need me, I have to go." A kid looked me dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, but unlike McPhee, you're not getting any prettier." Best burn ever. Story 133. HBO 24/7 Philadelphia Flyers versus New York Rangers. The players were mic'd up and you hear Rupp and Shelley go at it. Rupp says, "You are irrelevant out here. If you had any impact on the game, I would go with you. You don't." Story 134. I was being reprimanded once for disrespecting a coworker in a strange situation where a lazy person was trying to assert authority. So I yelled back, if I ever see them do any work, maybe just maybe I'll call them a coworker. But until then, they're just someone you pay to be here. I'm still somewhat proud of that. The person reprimanding me lost focus at that point and walked away. As for any fallout, there wasn't any. People yelling at each other was not unusual. I was usually not involved though. Story 135. Next time you kiss your mom, that's my person you are tasting. The guy was actually with the other person's mom. Story 136. This is slightly off topic, but it relates. I have a guy who texts me about once every 3 months, in the middle of the night, asking to hook up. Mind you, we have never hooked up. We went on a date once, 2 years ago. So, he did it the other night, sending me the proof of his ardor, which led to the following exchange. Me. "Oh, I was just thinking that it's about that time again." Him. "Oh yeah? Really?" Me. "Aren't you going to ask me what time it is?" Him. "What time is it?" Me. "It's that time every few months where you text me for a booty call, and then ghost me or stand me up after we've made plans to see each other at a respectable hour. There's been radio silence ever since. Mission accomplished. Story 137. One time my mom and my sister were fighting. My sister's boyfriend at the time was staying with us. This is the conversation I overheard. My sister, "Your breath smells like alcohol." My mom, "Your breath smells bad." It may be simple, but I personally think it's quite hilarious. Story 138. I was walking with my friend, a couple of months into a new school. I was the weird girl in my class at my last school. We walked by a group of boys from my old school. They were horsing around. One of them grabbed Danny and said to me, "He wants to go out with you." "Barf," I said and continued to walk. Everyone laughed except Danny. Story 139. Just because you have grown a bit of hair around your mouth does not mean you have to talk rudely. Story 140. This girl hates me and always makes fun of my weight. I was 82 kilograms, and she constantly calls me fat. Anyway, I lost 12 kilograms and now I am skinnier than her. I told her I can lose weight to make myself look better, but she will always have a terrible personality. Story 141. I had a man harassing me once and said, "Dude, are you gay?" To which I replied, "Why? Are you interested?" I knew I had him when his friends started cheering. Story 142. My go-to response to everything is, "Okay, accurate." I am such an ** glue that I have no delusion about what I am. Story 143. I was trying to talk to my 8-year-old nephew once. but he was enthralled with the video game he was playing and obviously he was not paying attention. When I realized he was not really paying attention, I said, "You do not care about anything I am saying, do you?" Without missing a beat or even looking away from the screen, he replied, "I do not care." Twice. I felt a combination of shock and pride because that was 100% a response I would have had. Story 144. It wasn't necessarily an insult, but the timing of events was hilarious. Two men were yelling at each other when Person A made a comment about Person B's mother. Person B chuckled and was about to walk away when he paused, waved at someone, and said to Person A, "Speaking of mothers," Person A's mother approached and handed him something in a bag, saying, "You left this at the house the other day." Person B reached into the bag and pulled out a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt. He smiled and said, "Thank you." Person A's mother's first name. We all stood there wondering what was happening. Person B just smiled and said, "I'll see you around?" with an inflection that clearly indicated it was a rhetorical question. I can't recall her response, but he quickly turned and walked away. It turned out he had helped plant some shrubs and do edging, not the sexual kind, without work bibs. So he changed out of his street clothes into sweats and a dirty t-shirt he had in his truck. When he finished the job, he left immediately because he had plans that evening and was so focused on them that he forgot his clothes. The look on Person A's face when this happened was priceless. His mother was attractive, too. Story 145. If someone ever tells you to suck a dick, just tell them you wouldn't want to put them or their mother out of a job. Story 146. An old man was hitting on me outside a store while I was eating. He said, "I'm surprised to see a pretty lady out alone. Where's your husband?" I replied, "Where's your wife?" This stunned him and silenced him. P.S. to men everywhere. Never say something like this to a woman of any age. Pointing out that she is alone gives off super creepy vibes. He was old enough to be my dad, if not my grandfather. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.